Hey Saber fans, Adam Brooks coming back to you with another build. I wanted to have been doing this for a little while now, and I wanted to make a balance or contact saber. So I went out and I did a little bit of research, and I figured out a few things that I wanted to put into this saber. And I figured since I was going to do the build, why not share it? Always here to try to help you out and give you ideas along the way, so I figured why not? And so what I wanted to do with mine, at least, obviously there's a couple things I wanted in it. I wanted sound, but I didn't want to make anything too expensive. And for the being, is that it's going to be tossed around. I'm sure I'm going to drop it a couple hundred times. I wanted to make it out of cheap parts, so maybe others can make it as well. I wanted to keep it somewhat light. I didn't want to use any kind of aluminum, hilt, or metal, so it's going to go with the PVC. And I wanted to go with a cheaper sound. And also I didn't want it too loud with the more premium sound cards and stuff like that. They get pretty loud, and I didn't want that. And I didn't want to really, in case I dropped it or broke something. I just kind of wanted to keep it cheap and under a pretty good budget. So what I came up with and what I'm going to use is pretty much what I'm going to show you here. And I figured it out that with sound and fully lit up and everything like that, it's going to come to about $66. Now if you take out the sound and you don't want to do it and you just want to do it like a stunt saber or a basic setup, you can basically cut out $20 from that price. So bringing it definitely under $50. And even that is, can be tweaked to make it even cheaper than that. So what I have and what I'm going to use is so we'll start with the sound. And that's going to be, this is a Hasbro Blade Builders soundboard. So basically all I did is I ripped it out of a Hasbro Blade Builders lightsaber. The cheapy ones you can buy in the store. I paid $20 for mine, but I know you can get them on sale, and they've had them on sale at times. Just I've actually been sitting on this one for a while, and I haven't used it. I really haven't done a PVC hilt in a while, and that's what I was sticking these in. And that was kind of in the beginning when I was starting sabering and building them. So I figured I'd use this, and they're pretty durable. They're easy to wire up, and they're pretty basic. You just got your, and I'm sure if you played with me, you know what it is, and it's exactly the same. You got your flicker effect, you got your clash sounds, you got your, boot up and shutting down. And, I'll put up a diagram of what I used. I'll show you in the video, and then you can, if you want to put the sound in it, that's definitely a viable option. And I'll show you that diagram as well. So anyway, this is about $20, and that's what I'm going to be using in there for my sound. This is the speaker that was ripped out of it, and like I said, it's really not too loud, so as I'm practicing it won't get annoying all the time. So what else you need is, I'm just going to go with a single LED. And this is a green one, and it's bright already, and so I've used this one before, and it works very well. And you need a lens and a lens holder, and the LED goes for about I think $7 is what I paid for this one. The lens and the lens holder, the lens is about $2.50. The lens holder is about 75 cents, and that's on the Custom Saber shop. You're going to need a heatsink, and this is a 1-inch, because we're going to be using a 1-inch tube for the PVC for the hilt. So that's about $10. This is the little switch I'm going to be using. This is a momentary switch, and that's the nice thing that you can use with the Hasbro board too, is you can use momentary switches with it, and it's already set up for that. And this is just a very tiny one. And the reason I wanted it tiny is I'm going to I wanted it low profile so I wouldn't be hitting the switch as I was spinning it around and stuff like that. And this has a nice little click to it. So you have to put some tension on there to make it work. So I figured I could kind of hide that in a spot, maybe towards the bottom of the hilt or something like that. I haven't figured that out yet, but I'll find a spot for it. I figure this one will work out perfectly. So you need a resistor for the LED. And that little momentary switch was, I think I got a pack of 50 for like $5 off of Amazon. So it was basically, I don't even know what that comes to in price-wise, but not too much at all. Resistor, that for the LED. And that's about 50 cents, if that. And that's a 1 ohm 2 watt resistor. You got our 18650 battery and holder, our thermal tape. So I got the battery cost me, and this is an old one I've used, so it's got some tape on there. This is about $5, and the holder is I think about $2. So this is just a coupler I'm going to be placing on the ends, and the cap, the 1-inch PVC, and the cap and the coupler. I think the cap was about 90 cents, and the coupler was about $1.30 at Home Depot. The PVC pipe was $2, and that's for a 2-foot piece. I'm only going to be using about 15 to 16 inches of it. We have some friction tape, and this is about $5. And I'm pretty much going to wrap the hilt in the friction tape. This is just a yellow electrical tape, and the reason I have this in here is because I'm going to have a reference point on the hilt as the balance point. Whatever that balance point's going to be, I'm just going to wrap some bright electrical tape around that balance point so I can, visually see it when I'm working on my flourishes and twirls and stuff like that. And then the bolts. Now this is just for a counterbalance, and it's going to be at the end of the hilt. And this is just some extra bolts I had laying around. I think this whole package cost me about $4, but honestly you can use anything you want as a counterbalance. I just figured the bolts were good, and I can add just a little bit more to add more weight to get that perfect balance point that I wanted. But you can really use anything you want for, to have a counterweight to it. You use rocks in your yard if that works for you, but that's just something I had. And so that's pretty much it, I think, as parts. So I'll try to go through the tutorial as I'm going through the steps, and I hope you enjoy and you find something useful out of it, and I'll see you in a few. So before we get started with the build, this is the diagram I'm going to be using, and that's what I use to set up the Hasbro board. And if you need to pause the video and copy this down, that might be easiest, and just kind of draw out your own diagram of what you need to do. There's a couple of ones, there's tons of them out on the internet, but this is just kind of the one I drew, and it matches my diagram of kind of the wires and everything I use that I showed you in the previous clip. And so I at least wanted to show this to give you an idea of how everything is set up. And so that if you wanted to do the sound, that would be the one that you want to use with that board. And this is just a crude diagram I drawn up a while ago of just, if you're not familiar with doing a stunt saber, it's pretty basic and easy to wire one up. And you're basically just taking the positives and running it to the one part of the switch, the one connector, and then running it to the battery, and then the negatives, since I'm only going to be using one wire from that, is just going to run to the battery. And disregard these resistors on here. You don't have to worry about those. just the resistor is just going to go in the positive. This was just something I was working up a while ago, so I just wanted to show you a quick diagram of that. So I wanted to add the blade in as well, because I forgot to mention that in the price out. And I'll put everything in the comments, but what I'm going to be using is most likely a 30-inch, 1-inch thick-walled blade. And I'm going to see how that works out as far as the balance goes. And it might be shorter, it might be a little bit longer, but I'm going to play with the length. But I wanted to let you know that's the blade I'm going to be using in this. And as far as price goes, the blade, and this will get you a 40-inch blade from the custom Saber shop, is about $12, and that's even rounded up. And then you have your blade tip, which is about $3.50. If you went with the thin-walled, that would be cheaper, but I'm going to go with the thick-walled just because that's what I have, and I have a bunch of these already, and so that's it. Okay, so I cut my PVC piece. I put my end pieces on here, and I wanted a full 16-inch workable area. So you know, I'm keeping this real simple. It's going to be nothing fancy with it. All I did is I cut a 45-degree angle, and I want the area that my hand can actually touch to be a full 16 inches. And so I made sure I put the coupler on, push it on as hard as I could to make sure it was nice and secure. Basically measured out to 16 inches and then just cut the 45. So the blade will fit in here perfectly. I'll have a little retention screw down here, and that'll be it. Alright, so progress on the build here. What we did is soldered up the LED, and actually found out, and I forgot, that these lens holders does not fit into the 1-inch, so you can disregard that. Actually just makes it a little more stable in there, but you really don't need it. Pretty much the pressure from screwing in the back side here will keep the lens in place, and actually you can adjust it a little bit so it sits over the LED a little bit better, because it is all centered on the single LED, at least on the Luxion LEDs. So it's good. You can see there's a long LED wire because it's a longer hilt. So I made it just a little bit extra in length. You have the resistor soldered in here on the positive side, and then on the board so far, pretty much everything's soldered onto the board. You just need to connect the green speaker wires. The battery's already connected. Gotta clean it up a little bit. And I don't think I went over this before, but if you decide to go with the Hasbro Soundboard, I recommend getting a tip 42 resistor or transistor. It's this is a tip 42G. I just got it at the Radio Shack, and on the diagram it shows you how to wire it up that I showed earlier. And it comes with the 3 prongs here, and then, you know, on the diagram it'll show you where to connect it to the board. And that helps with the voltage with the LED, because these really aren't made for, you know, high-end LEDs. It's just a tiny LED that comes with the Blade Builder Saber. So this will help it control the voltage a little bit, and also with the 3.7 volt battery as well. So the yellow wires are for the momentary switch, and that was the little tiny switch over here I'm going to be putting in. And I decided to put it in the back here, so I just I drilled out a little hole which it'll fit in, and then I'll just I'll wire it up and put a little bit of hot glue on the back side of it, and that'll keep it in place. And that'll also keep it out of the main area where you're going to be touching. And then also I thought about it, and I'm going to actually put 2 O-rings around this and actually keep it a little more flush so my hand won't accidentally brush over it. I don't think it'd be a problem or anything like that, but it'd just, kind of level it out a little bit more. If you notice, I just put a little bit of silver spray paint that I had laying around, and I probably will put a little of tape on this as well, but just so you didn't see the white PVC. That's just optional. It's just something I did, and then I brought it up here just a little bit. And this is going to be all wrapped in the tape anyway, all the way up to the top, and then even to this cutoff point here. And if you notice the holes, this is going to be for the LED retention screw, and I drilled that 3 inches back from the front here, and I figured that would probably be a good spot to have the LED retention, to give enough blade space within the hilt, so it'd be nice and secure in there. So I drilled that on the back side, and then on the front side, I drilled a hole for the blade retention screw. And unfortunately, it's going to stick up a little bit. I might get a shorter one just so it's more flush against there, but it'll work for now. And then, of course, a little spray paint on the front just to kind of cover it up, because the tape will come up to the retention screw, and this would be showing, so not necessary, but just to make it look a little bit better. And then also, if you're going to be doing a curved cut, I would recommend putting the retention screw for the blade on this side, because if you think about it, when the blade slides inside, and it should come to about here, so this whole entire length, about the 3 inches, you want it pushing against at least the more surface area on the back side. So just a little tip. If it's going to be a flat cut, it doesn't really matter, but you might as well have the extra retention or going on that, the most surface area. Other than that, that's pretty much what I have so far. And then also too, I forgot to mention, on the end cap, I drilled a couple holes in there just for the sound to come out. And then I'm also going to leave, this is what came out of the blade builder, is it comes in a little protective housing. You can pull this off. This actually pops off, but if you can see, it doesn't fit into the 1-inch tubing. It's too big. But however, since this is actually bigger, this end piece, it's actually going to sit in the end right by the portholes perfectly. And it's actually nice and snug in there. I'll just wrap a little bit of the tape around it, the fabric tape, and then I got a little bit of space to fill up here to put the bolts in, and to give it a little more weight on the back side. So I'll show you all that when it's done, and pretty much that's it so far. So moving good, and I'm about 45 minutes, I guess, into the project, so not too long, pretty simple, and I'll show you the next step in a few. So great, moving along, we have all the electronics installed. The little switch is down here, and it's hot glued in. So it fires up. A nice green blade, and not too loud, just the way I wanted it. Just a little bit of hum and stuff like that. You still have your clash effects and everything. And so you get your blade flicker. We have our retention screws in for our LED and for our blade. It's nice and firm in there, no wiggle at all. I was going to actually put some tape on the end of the blade, but I didn't even need to, so I decided not to. So we have a 30-inch blade, and then I found with just 2 bolts, which I wrapped in electrical tape just to hold them together, and that'll slide right in here, right behind the battery pack, and then the speaker still kind of float right here in the end. Nothing moves or anything like that. So with all that in there, the balance point is right here, right above the P, and that's about 6 inches back. It's actually exactly 6 inches back from the very tip to here, which is I think a good spot for the balance point, for trying to do the flow motions and stuff like that. So I'm pretty happy with it. I'm going to start wrapping it up with the tape, and I actually decided to go with this fabric tape instead, which you can find at your local sporting goods store or online. The other tape seemed to be a little too tacky, and I didn't like the way it felt, so I'm going to wrap it up with this, and I'll be back. Alright, so we're all complete. Got it all wrapped up with the fabric tape. Got the end cap on here, and so I decided to go against the putting the O-rings on. Didn't think they were necessary. They're kind of getting in the way anyway. Put a little bit of fabric tape down here on the bottom to cover up the spot, the empty space, and to keep this end cap on even more securely. It's really on there snug. It's not going anywhere. And this is pretty tactile. It's nice and kind of flush in there, not too much, but you know, you have to push on it pretty good to get it to light up. So I don't think I'll be triggering that at all when I'm working on my moves and stuff like that. The fabric tape came out pretty good. Has a good feel to it, and I got that at Dick's Sporting Goods for about $3.50. And so I wrapped up the entire hilt. Little white electrical tape for a reference point, and this is the balance point on the hilt. Little extra tape here, and then I just decided to leave the top the silver. So it came out pretty nice. Overall length from the tip to the base is 46.5 inches. So yeah, that's about it. Maybe I'll do a little demonstration video down the road. But hopefully you like this build. And if you have any questions, please leave it in the comments. I'll put a copy of the diagram I used for the Hasbro Soundboard if you want to go that direction and put some sound in there. I think it's a good choice. It's a cheap option. It sounds good, and you know, you can't go wrong with it. So I hope you enjoyed, and take care.